Hello, folks. This is Chris reporting once again for Emperor's Palace at Kempton Park in Johannesburg, near the site of the OR Tambo International Airport. An update on the multi-party charter for South Africa, or MCSA, as journalists are now starting to call it, the MCSA. This is an agreement between 7 opposition parties, including the largest opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the Freedom Front Plus, Action SA, and a host of other smaller groups, including the United Independent Movement. These parties are working together. They've reached an agreement yesterday, the first day of this convention. They achieved a vision statement as well as identifying the key tenets, the key points or principles that the coalition will go forward in its effort to unseat the ruling African National Congress in 2024 national elections here in South Africa. Now, the question is, will anyone take notice of this? Is this, in fact, a seminal moment in the history of South Africa? Is this a key turning point for the history or for the future of South Africa, we should say? Well, that remains to be seen. And there are a number of groups, of course, that depends on the reaction to this MCSA. First out of the gate is the public. Is the public noticing this event taking place, or will it even take place? That's a good question. Public perception, public reception of a multi-party coalition, a grand alliance to unseat the African National Congress is, of course, the first thing we're going to be concerned about. The second thing, of course, is this is a coalition, a charter of 7 parties at the moment. They've opened the door and invited any opposition party, with the exception of the Economic Freedom Fighters, to join their coalition in an effort to unseat the ANC next year. So how will opposition parties receive this? Some parties are not here, including the United Democratic Movement under Major General Bantu Holomisa, and the African Christian Democratic Party under Dr. Kenneth Mashwe, also not here. Notable exceptions, both of which apparently are objecting to conversations that the Democratic Alliance is preparing the ground for a coalition with the African National Congress in 2024, a scenario that scares the bejesus out of many South Africans, to say the least. Is that true? We don't know. But we do know that those parties aren't here. Nonetheless, the coalition has opened the door to other opposition parties and civic groups to join their effort to strive for a better South Africa after 2024. So how the public perceives it, opposition political parties. And now the next question is, how will the ANC view this? How will the ANC receive this MCSA? Well, probably the best response, quite frankly, and this is analysis, not news reporting at this stage, probably the best approach for the African National Congress is simply ignore this. Their best bet is try to hoodwink voters into believing that they care about them and someone other than the 500,000 caters who they take care of. The 59.5 million South Africans largely neglected by their kleptocracy and their uncaring stance, despite using populist words all the time. So that's probably the best approach for the African National Congress. Simply ignore this and focus on getting people to vote for them based on their principles, their merits, and the successes they have achieved over the years. Will that prove to be successful? Will the African National Congress get 50 plus 1 in the 2024 national elections? Well, that remains to be seen. There's a lot of ground to be covered between today, August of 2023, and the election sometime in 2024. Not the least of which is the ANC's praying that they can solve this load-shedding, rolling blackout situation, which is driving South Africa into the less developed world, as millions of South Africans suffer without reliable sources of electricity. And finally, the most important part of all of this, the multi-party charter for South Africa, the MCSA, the most important group of all these are voters, likely voters, those who are registered, those who are going to register, those who intend to vote in 2024 elections. How will they receive the multi-party charter for South Africa, the MCSA? Well, they're offering a vision that is starkly different than the African National Congress. The African National Congress will incorporate many of the words and the language that this group has put out there. But the reality is the African National Congress's actions are not their words. The deeds that they accomplish do not match the words that they put out there. So this is the final day of this convention here at Emperor's Palace in Kempton Park, just outside Johannesburg. And there will be a press conference at the end of the day, a summary from Professor Gumeda, who is the chairperson of this conference, a neutral party, a professor of political science who's here. He will have some comments about it, and then the party leaders will have a chance to actually get their words in. Now, throughout this conference, this convention, there has been a moratorium for the participants, the delegates, both the party leaders and their seconds and thirds who have with them in the discussions and negotiations, a moratorium from speaking to the public and to the press. That's certainly understandable. When you're doing diplomatic negotiations, you don't have it open to the public. You're horse trading, you're dickering, you're making agreements, you're coming up with solutions, and it isn't always pleasant. Making sausage is an ugly process, and that's what these 7 parties are trying to do. They're trying to take disparate parts of a pie and jam it into a skin and make themselves a sausage for 2024. So we'll see what happens. I'll have further updates as day progresses, and we'll keep you up to date on what's happening here at Emperor's Palace. For Chris Wyatt reporting, this is Colonel Chris Wyatt, wishing you a blessed day.